In this lesson, we'll be smoothing out our camera movement. Okay, so let's go ahead and we'll come in here, take a look at our dog and leash comp, which is kind of acting as our camera since we're moving it in relation to our comp here. So I'll just hit the U key to bring up those keyframes, and we're starting out kind of pulling this into position, and you can see how it really noticeably goes down right about there because of the way the dog's back moves. So let's take a look at the graph editor, and that's going to be probably due to the Y or possibly the Z position. Looks like the Z position might be causing it to be more visible because of the way that that's smoothing out. So all we really need to do is grab the Y position and pull it out as well. So we don't want to go too crazy on it, just enough that that's visible. And it also looks like the X looks like it changes a little bit. So again, let's smooth that one out too. Just so the timing's pretty similar between the three different dimensions. And then we get this nice kind of continuing to pull back motion. And then as we come in here at the end, we just get a little bit of an odd movement right in there. So what we want to do is almost kind of just make this feel like it moves over to the left a little bit before the ending. So it's probably due mostly in part to the issue we're having with the Z. So just because we've got this line so far pulled out, let's bring it back in a little bit and see if that helps. Also, when I clicked on the Y, I noticed that this kind of moves up a little bit, and you never want to have that where that goes up and down if you don't want to cause some sort of a boomerang kind of look. So let's pull that back down so it's flat and it's not going above where we have that nice straight line. And let's take a look right here and see if we've got something similar. And it does look like we do. So we'll want to fix that just by pulling this down very slightly. It's going to make that not have such a strange look to it. And I can just kind of smooth that out just like this. Now let's make sure that that is working okay on this side still. We'll just kind of smooth that down. And let's see how that looks. We'll just play this back really quickly. So I still feel like we're getting a little bit of a swooshing kind of movement almost from here to here. So that's okay. Let's just play around a little bit with what we've got. So just kind of editing that to see if this line is straightening out. That's what we're focusing on. And I'll just pull this a little bit more over to the left. You can just see how it's sort of bottoming out and finishing off looking like that. So let's actually come in. Let's go back out here and see if we can't fix this maybe by selecting all those keys, and we'll control click them to turn them back to linear keys. And then what we can do is, instead of making it look like it hits so hard here, I'm just going to pull all the way to the end of the comp, grab the Z, and we'll just push back a little bit further in the Z. Just like that. Now it is going to go ahead and set keys for the X and Y, but that's fine because we're not really worrying about those right now. And what I'll do is I'll just create a auto Bezier keyframe for this middle Z key. So we'll just control click that. And then for this final key, what I want to do is go into the graph editor, and it already is pretty smooth. So it's not going to look like it hits hard. It's fine if we leave that linear. And that's really going to help that not to feel like it bounces up at the end quite so much. So let's just start about right there with the B key just to trim that work area. And then we'll RAM preview to watch this through. We may even need to pull it back a little bit further in that Z space. Let's see what that looks like if we give it just a little bit more motion backwards. Because right now it's just almost imperceptible. And let's also do the same auto Bezier for our X and Y position keys. That's just going to help smooth those and also add a little bit of motion here at the end whenever it starts to become really static. Really nice. So that looks very nice and smooth here at the end. We do get a little bit of a sense that it starts to feel like it kind of is going down and to the right, even though these values are the same. So if that's at 629.6, you can see how it moves and then goes back to that same value. So let's actually try holding these two keys because those values are not really changing the same way that the Z position is changing. So with both those keys selected, we can right click. I'm going to pull this up just so you can see the options I have here. We'll right click and choose toggle hold keyframe. So now when we watch through, we should be able to just kind of say those are holding until they get to that point. And because they're the last keys, we're not going to see any kind of up or downward movement. And that seems to have totally eliminated the problem and also keeps it from going too far in one direction or the other where it feels like there's something wrong. Now, the only other thing I want to change is having the text also move along with our animal. So if we're starting that at 2285.4, let's take a look at what the Z position of the logo type is. So that's going to be pretty much the same, but we'll want to key that over time just to move only in the Z. And that's going to change to 3011. So we can just change that. And because it's just such a simple movement, we can leave those as linear keys and you'll never notice any kind of problem. And it's just over such a long period of time too that it's not going to be noticeable if one's moving maybe slightly faster than the other in the interpolation. They actually match up really nicely. Okay, great. So the last thing that we have to do is add a solid for our background. So I'll just go into my layer, go to new solid, and you can choose to do white or maybe even just a very slightly off-white sort of color here. And we'll add that just behind everything else. And then let's just add a vignette the same way we have been. In fact, to save you a little bit of time, you could jump over to one of your other comps that we already finished, grab that layer that already has the vignette, hit Control-C, jump back over to your leash and bone comp, and hit Control-V. And just make sure it's the topmost layer, and you're good to go. So I'll hit the 0 key just to watch this all the way through, make sure there's nothing else we want to change. And the only thing I'm noticing is that we may want to make sure that motion blur is turned on for everything on the inside of that dog and leash comp that we want it to be for. And it looks like it is on for all of those. Let's also double check on our text as well. And they look like they have it. So that's just a good thing to double check at the end before you're about to render, just to make sure that everything is matching up. Everything has motion blur that you want to have it. Great. Now I'm also going to make sure that motion blur is turned on for a couple other layers here. Great. So that looks beautiful. We have our camera smoothed. All of those logos are done. And now you could render any one of the three that we've done in this study out and add it to the beginning of your next video for this type of a business. So thank you so much for watching this course, and good luck in creating this on your own.